All right, so Moon gets thrown in the back of the police car and makes a comment to Officer Sanders, or Constable Sanders. Can you get the door for me, Chris? Hope I busted those sunglasses too. Sanders was all upset. If you remember, like Moon says, he took this little box. Thank you. He took this black box off his belt and threw it down. What would a black box that he tried to talk into be that a police officer would have?
Oh, radio.
A radio. Why does Moon not know what that is?
Because he's never been around police officers.
Yeah, he's not been around police officers. He's not been out in the real world. So Constable takes it, throws it down, breaks into a bunch of pieces, and Moon's in the back of his car. So it sounds like Moon's going to the slammer. Chapter 8. I leaned up in my seat and I pressed my face against the glass as the car crossed back over the bridge and picked up speed toward Gainesville. Oh, one more thing. Sanders takes his wheelbarrow, takes all the stuff out of it, puts it in his trunk. He takes the wheelbarrow and throws it over the bridge, and the wheelbarrow lands with like the handles like straight into the mud, like sticking straight up.
Like those black handles?
Probably just sticking up in the air. All right. I leaned up in my seat, pressed my face against the glass as the car crossed back over the bridge and picked up speed towards Gainesville. Mr. Abrascado's store flashed past, and I stared ahead as the green traffic light, not believing that I'd actually get to see it up close. When we passed under it, I tried to look up and then spun in my seat and watched it fall behind. Then I saw a car rush past us from the other direction. I spun around again, my heart racing. Buildings came at us on each side, all of them bigger than Mr. Wellington's lodge. We sped past them, and then I sat back down as we started up another bridge. There was only blue sky in front of me, though, through the windshield. I felt the sickness creeping back into my stomach, just like I had felt in Mr. Jean's car. I took a deep breath, and I held it, but the nausea sat in me like poison. I lay on the seat, I drew up my knees, and I closed my eyes. What happened to Mr. Jean's car?
Threw up all in it.
Yeah, he threw up all in it because he got car sick. Again, has Moon ever been in a car before? No, so it's like dizzying to him. And if you're one of those people that ever gets car sick, you know what that feeling feels like. It's not good.
Car sick thing.
Yes. Car sickness, something like 12% of the population gets it. And usually it's because of when you're seeing things going past, like you're not able to, your brain doesn't necessarily like tune those things out. So you're seeing it all and it makes you really dizzy and can make you really sick. It is a very real thing.
Sometimes when we're driving a long distance, I have it. Like
Yeah.
if we drive like 2 or 3 hours, I have it.
Yeah. Sometimes having the windows down, sitting in the front seat, like if you're reading like in the car, that can make you really sick for some people. For me, I don't get it. Like I feel fine. I can sit wherever in a car. It doesn't matter much to me.
I got sick once sitting in the front seat.
Ooh. So you know that feeling if that's you. So Moon lay on the seat and drew up his knees and closed his eyes. It seemed like the ride would never end. Sometimes we would slow down or even come to a stop, but then we'd start moving again. The constable didn't say a word to me, and all I could hear was the road through the vinyl seat and other cars passing us. I was able to keep from getting sick by continuing to take deep breaths and holding them. After what seemed like an hour, we finally stopped. The constable got out of the car and left his door open. I sat up slowly and I looked around. We were parked in front of a brick building that said Livingston Police Department across the front. The constable came back a minute later, opened my door, and dragged me off my seat. He pulled me by the arm, and I hopped along on one foot beside him, staring at all the shiny cars in the parking lot. "Hey, what about my hat?" I said. He squeezed my arm tighter and jerked me forward. Once we were through the door, he let loose and walked out again. "Clean up, Earl," he said over his shoulder. Earl had on a different colored uniform and was a lot younger than the constable. His hair was slicked back and tight on him, like as tight on him as his shirt and trousers. He looked at me, shook his head, and said, "Jesus." I could tell he was nervous about something. He pointed me into the bathroom where they had a shower. He had me strip naked and stand under the shower head with a big brush in my hand while he turned the knobs. It was the first time I had ever taken a shower and had so much warm water over me. I shut my eyes and I hope I could stay there for a while. Now think about this. You live out in the woods your whole life. How do you get clean?
You don't.
River.
You don't, or you go in the river, right?
Or
Basically, if you go,
Which,
basically, if you go swimming, that's your bath.
yeah, if you go swimming in the creek or the river, that's your bath. Probably not much soap or anything like that. Maybe, I don't know. They didn't say one way or another if you got it from Mr. Abbracato's store. Go ahead.
What do they use to dry? Do they use like the deer skin to dry off, or like the side that's soft?
Probably air dry, right? I mean, maybe you could use a deer skin, but chances are they probably just air dry. Now, I don't know about you, but trying to take a bath or a shower in a creek or a river in the fall, in the wintertime,
I'd love it.
you would like that? You just go jump in the creek right now? It's 80 degrees today. Today is not a good example. I would imagine that water's pretty cold. So it's the first time Moon's ever had that much warm water over him. So he's getting a nice hot shower, which he's never had before. I shut my eyes and I hoped I could stay there for a while. You gonna be trouble to me? Earl said. I opened my eyes. I didn't do anything. Someone called from the next room over. You all right in there, Earl? Yeah, I'm all right, Bob. Sanders gone? Yeah, he's gone. You'd think this was his police station, the way he just comes in here and tells us what to do. Well, his daddy's the judge, Earl. Earl shook his head. He looked down at me. Start scrubbing yourself. I ain't doing it. After my shower, Earl made me put new clothes on that were too big and smelled like Mr. Abbracato's soap shelf. I barely found those for you, he said. I don't have anything to fit your feet, so you'll just have to walk around in those socks. He led me back to where they locked people up, and I did my best not to trip over my pant legs and slip on the waxed floor. Papa told me about jail, so I wasn't surprised when I saw the cages. Earl unlocked an empty one and motioned me inside. Now you just stay quiet in here until someone comes for you, he said. I nodded to him, and he locked the door and walked out. Jail was the best place I'd ever been. They had good food, a comfortable bed, and a sink with running water and a flush toilet.
Sounds pretty nice.
Why is it that Moon thinks jail is the best place he's ever been?
Because he's never been in a house.
Yeah, he's never been in a house. He's lived out in the wild, so he's got a nice, comfortable bed. He's got clothing, a warm shower. He's got a flush toilet. Sweet. In a sink with running water. Jail is the best place he's ever been.
It would be better if it had a TV.
Yeah, maybe they even have TVs in there. I don't know. The only other person in a cage across the hall from me was a man who told me his name was Obregon. He said they locked him up for being too drunk and wrecking his car. He was lying on his bed talking at the ceiling and picking scabs on his face. What they got you in here for? He asked me. I don't know. Where you live at? At a hole in the ground in the forest? You say you live in a cave? No, it's a shelter that trees have grown over. I seen that story on TV. Your daddy's the one that lived out in those woods, isn't he? Both of us did. What'd you eat out there? Lots of stuff. Stuff I'd trap and kill mostly. Some stuff Pap and I used to grow. Obregon grunted and laughed to himself. By the looks of him, you sure gave Sanders a hard time. I told him I didn't want to go, and he's liable to keep you up in here for a while, riled up as he is. He's not one that likes to be made a fool of. I don't mind. I like the food here. Obregon sat up and yawned. I imagine you do. You don't look like you get much to eat. I think I could live here for a little while. They let you go outside, son? Yeah, they let you go out and walk around. At least they let me out. They might be too scared of you. I smiled at him. I knew he was kidding me. What are they going to do with my stuff? Well, they got it stored up front. They stripped off all my clothes. Well, they'll keep those for you too. I had a wheelbarrow that Sanders threw off into a swamp. I had that wheelbarrow ever since I can remember. I hauled my dead pap around in it. You what? Loaded pap and took him to our cemetery in it. Huh. It's got some special meaning to you, huh? It's the only way I've got to get stuff around. I never thought of a wheelbarrow meaning so much to anybody. I had a deerskin hat, too. I made it myself, but Sanders threw it away. You think they'll let me have some more pie? Obregon shouted it toward the doors. Hey, Earl! Earl! Earl came through the doors. What? Hey, that little feller says he wants more pie. You got any in there? Earl looked at me and shook his head. One more person tells me what to do. He left the room and shut the door behind him. He came back a few seconds later with the pie and stuck it through the bars to me. That's all you get, you hear? I took the pie. You gonna let me stay in this cage tonight? Let you? I nodded. On this bed here. Well, that's up to Mr. Sanders. He's in charge of you. Where'd he go? He went home to Gainesville. He said to keep you here until he got back. Then what's he gonna do to me? I reckon he'll haul you over to the juvenile home in Tuscaloosa. He said I was more fit for jail. Well, I don't know. We'll just have to see. I'll just do what I'm told. Man, you're spineless, Earl, Obregon said. Shut up, Obregon. You can tell Mr. Gene and Sanders both that I don't aim to go with them anywhere. Tell them I can whip up a man 3 times my size, maybe 2 at once. Earl shook his head. He leaned his face into the bars of my cage. I'm going to give you some advice, kid. You're already in a lot of trouble, and you don't have to be. You'll be lucky if they don't come down on you for assaulting the lawman. You need to tame that temper of yours and cooperate, or you're going to end up in a lot of places you don't want to be. Man, let the kid be, Obregon said. Shut up, Obregon. I just want people to leave me alone, I said. Well, it doesn't work like that. You can't live by yourself until you're older, kid. That's the law. Pap said I should go to Alaska, I said quietly. What? Never mind. Chapter 9. Y'all been to jail before?
No, well, I've had a family member that's been in jail.
Had a family member that's been in jail?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a jail before?
I still got 2 uncles that's in prison.
Have you ever visited them before?
No.
Seen them?
I don't know what they look like.
No? So jail, I don't know how similar it is to TV. I also don't know what like a small town jail looks like versus like a big prison.
My brother's been in Pathways.
What's
For
Pathways?
knocking my dad out.
How old's your brother?
20 now. He was 18 when he did it. And
Is that like a juvenile home or something?
Huh?
Is Pathways like a juvenile home?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably more similar to where Moon's about to go. Probably pretty similar to what you've seen on TV, though. I mean, it's jails, a toilet, small police station jails. There's usually only a couple of jails in there, jail cells, I should say. Then those big prisons have like where lots of prisoners are, and they have big giant fences around them and all that. So Moon thinks this is the best place he's ever been. The next morning, another policeman brought me a bacon and eggs and biscuit for breakfast. Obregon said I ate like a wild dog. I told him it was the best breakfast I ever had. Not long after I finished, I heard Sanders talking about me beyond the door. Where's that little pissant? He's back there. Someone on the other side of the door said he's not too upset about it either. He been giving y'all any trouble? No, he's been eating up everything we bring him. He and Obregon are good buddies now. Huh. I heard Sanders grunt, and then footsteps came towards the door. He came in the room and looked around until he saw me in the cage. You ready, boy? Where are we going? Taking you to Tuscaloosa. Gonna introduce you to your old friend, Mr. Gene. Now get up. I set my jaw, and I shook my head. Don't you shake your head at me, boy. I went to the back of my cage. And I sat in the corner. I drew my knees up to my chest, and I hugged him possum style. Sanders reached to his belt and he pulled away a set of keys. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Now I said, get up. That child can't be more than 10 years old. Sanders, Obregon said. He got you all jumpy. Shut up, Obregon. Sanders put the keys back on his belt and he unsnapped a leather case that held a pair of handcuffs. Hold your hands out, boy. But man, what's your problem, Sanders? I quickly pulled my hands away from my knees and I sat on them. This ain't none of your damn business, Sanders said to Obregon. Don't tell me you gotta handcuff him. Sanders turned around and looked at Obregon. I thought I told you to shut up. Obregon smiled. I bet you used to have bullies on you like wild dogs on me when you was in school. Never mind, I forgot. You didn't make it past 8th grade, did you, Sanders? I did, it's in the book.
Yeah, it's in the book. He told you at the first of the story there could be some cuss words.
There could be. Sanders ignored Obregon. Get up, he said to me. I shook my head. Now, Sanders yelled. I didn't move. Sanders reached down. He grabbed me by the back of my shirt. He lifted me, still balled up, with my arms around my knees again. Obregon stood in his cell and clung to the bars. You heard him, and I seen it all, he said. I smiled at Obregon. It doesn't hurt. At least put some shoes and jacket on the kid, Obregon called after us. Sanders carried me out of the cage, through the main office, and the outside. All right, so Moon is sitting like this, right? Like he's got his knees all close to him. And Sanders just picks him up. Sanders picked him up, and Moon's still holding on to his knees like this. So he's all balled up, and Sanders is carrying him out the jail.
Like a coon.
I know how possums do that because we've had a possum that
And so you probably have a good connection to what that looks like. Put some shoes and a jacket on, the kid Obregon called after us. Sanders carried me out of the cage, through the main office and outside. He opened up his car and he tossed me in the back while I was nothing but like a sack of coon hides. He slammed the door behind me and went back inside. When Sanders returned, I'd come out of my ball and was sitting up the normal way. He glanced at me once and then got in the driver's seat and started the engine. I knocked on the plastic shield between us, but he acted like he didn't hear me. "Sanders," I said. No answer. He pulled onto the road and sped up. "Sanders," I said again. "What? Where are we?" "First of all, it's Constable Sanders to you, and we're in Livingston." Suddenly, the window beside me slid down a few inches, and the cold air came rushing through and blew against my face. "Little chilly back there," Sanders said as he chuckled to himself. I didn't say anything. I wanted that window down to keep me from getting sick again. As I watched the countryside pass by, I thought about escape. But I had not been farther than Mr. Abbracato's store that I had remembered, and I knew we weren't anywhere close to that. I reasoned that even if I could get out of the car, I wouldn't know where to go, and I wouldn't have any of my supplies. "When do I get my things back?" "You'll get them when we're good and ready. Everything except that rifle and bullets you were toting." I felt my face grow warm. "You can't take my rifle," I shouted. "Pap gave me that rifle." Sanders seemed to like it that I was getting upset. He shook his head and smiled. I slammed my fist into the plastic shield. "Hey!" he yelled. He looked in his rearview mirror at me. He wasn't smiling anymore. "You scratch up my new patrol car, we're going to have to go at it, boy. I spent 2 hours cleaning your stink out of it last night." I sat back and I looked down at my knees. We drove along without talking for a long time. I thought again about ways to escape, but the situation seemed hopeless. After a while, Sanders pulled over at a gas station and filled the car. When he came back from paying, he was popping a flat round can against his thumb. He got into the car and opened the container by cutting it with his teeth. "What's that?" "It's Copenhagen chewing tobacco." "Now shut up." "I gotta pee." "Hold it. You ain't getting out of this car." He put some of the tobacco between his front lip and his gum, and he flicked his fingers at the floor. He closed the door and started the engine. As we pulled onto the highway, I watched him move his lips around and spit into an RC Cola can. He caught me staring. "I can't help but think I'll be seeing you in and out of jail all your life, kid." I looked away and I didn't answer him. "You ain't nothing but white trash. You're worse than white trash. You ain't even trailer trash. You know what you are?" I shook my head against the car window, still watching the fields pass by. "You stinking militia trash. That's what you are." I didn't know the word militia. I kept staring out the window while he talked to me. He spat into the can and then scraped it against his chin to catch some dribble. Spat again. "Your daddy haven't known nothing in his life. He trespassed and poached for a living. Some dirty lowlife you'd see walking down the highway with animal furs wrapped around him. You don't know my pap." "The hell I don't. I seen him." I felt my face go hot again. I balled my fist on my knees.
He's about to do it.
I knew there wasn't anything I could do, so I just stayed quiet. "You'd never been nothing, boy. That man didn't care a lick about you." I couldn't hold my anger in any longer. I slammed both my fists into the plastic shield and I shouted at him. "I got another gun, you know. I still got Paps hidden away with some bullets. You'll be lucky if I don't shoot you dead." "Oh, here we go," he said, and Sanders veered off the road and skidded to a halt. He racked the gear shift into place and flung the car door open. I crouched on the seat like a frog. When he opened my door, I jumped at him. He didn't expect me to come at him like I did. By the time his hands stretched out to grab me where I would have been on the seat, I was already clinging to him with my legs wrapped around his stomach and my arms under his armpits. I bit into his shoulder and I chewed at it like it was tough gristle. Sanders started yelling and backed away from the car while I worked on 3 or 4 chews. He grabbed me around the waist with both hands and squeezed so hard that, my body shot with pain and I had to throw my head back and cough at the sky. I felt my pants grow wet with pee flowing down my leg. "Ah! Damn it," he yelled. "How about this? You feeling this?" I tried to nod so that he would stop, but I couldn't. "I ain't the man to mess with, boy. My family's owned land in Sumner County for 100 years. You wouldn't know anything about owning stuff now, would you?" I coughed again and my eyes felt like they were about to burst. He squeezed me harder. "Would you?" Everything I saw was blurry. A truck whooshed by. I heard the dinging of the police car where the door was still open. Suddenly he released me and dropped me to the asphalt, and I heard him spit and walk away. I rolled over and I got sick onto the ground. I hoped he'd let me lie there until I felt better. I wanted to stay until it became dark out and I heard owls calling. And I lay there for what seemed like a long time staring at the loose gravel, but he grabbed me by the shirt, lifted me, and threw me back in the police car. He said something to me, but I couldn't make it out. All right, so Moon jumps out of the car. He lands on Sanders. He wraps himself around him and just starts biting him. Sanders grabs him, bear hugs him so hard that Moon's face is about to like explode.
Oh my gosh.
And in the meantime, his bladder explodes and he pees all over Sanders and
Well, if
himself.
he lets him go,
But
I would say, oh, you let me go, and now's my chance.
let's keep going. I lay across the back seat, taking deep breaths and waiting for the pain to go away.
See, that's the problem.
I felt the gentle motion of the cruiser through the vinyl. Wasn't long before the car slowed. I heard the tires on the gravel road. I want you to pay attention to something, boy, Sanders said. The car stopped and I saw Sanders' window going down. Billy! Billy! He yelled. Go tell your daddy to get out here. I heard a screen door slam somewhere outside. Sanders began to pack his Copenhagen with dull thumps against his thigh. Show you what it's like to own things, boy. He turned and looked at me and shoved another pinch of tobacco in his mouth. I watched his face as he stared at me and worked the tobacco around his tongue. And then I heard another man's voice outside. How you doing, Davy? The man said. Sanders turned away from me and peered out the window. What'd I tell you last month, Alan? Davy, you know how things have been around here. I talked to Daddy about it. He said we could get settled with you in 2 weeks. I got disability coming. Sanders shook his head and stared straight out at the steering wheel. Alan, lean in here, he said calmly. I heard footsteps outside the car. Come here, Sanders said again. I want to tell you something. Well, I can hear fine from right here, Davy. Lean in here. No sense in little Billy hearing this. I heard footsteps again and saw the man's head appear at the window and his hands rest on the driver's door. His face was long and sunken and smudge-streaked. He reminded me of a blue heron. He swallowed and I saw his Adam's apple move up and down. Sanders suddenly let go of the steering wheel and he backhanded the man right across his jaw. It happened so fast I jumped in my seat. The man's face was knocked around as if he had looked away to stare at the back tire. He slowly wiped his mouth and continued looking downward. My granddaddy didn't leave this land to my daddy, now did he? The man didn't answer. His face was beet red. Did he? Sanders repeated. No, he didn't. See what you could do then. I know plenty of people that would love to take over this house you built on my property. Sanders rolled up his window and began to drive forward. The man's hand slipped away from the car and his face passed by my window. He never looked up. That's white trash, Sanders said. So Dee said, and he noticed that Sanders cursed a couple times, right? Mm-hmm. So in our books, I don't like to censor the books. If an author's got all these words to choose from, he's choosing very specific words to convey a message of what type of person Constable Sanders is. And based on the type of person Constable Sanders is, if he was like, darn it, would that be really like, would that match the type of character that Sanders seems to be?
No.
Like whipping up on a 10-year-old boy and squeezing him almost to like the point where he like suffocates him. Guy comes to his car window and he smacks him. Is that the kind, like Sanders is going to be like, oh, golly gee darn, boy, get in my back seat. Like that doesn't match the character very well. So I really think that if...
the author picks the type of words that matches the character.
Absolutely. The author picks the types of words that match the character. There are going to be other curse words in here. Just be prepared for that. It's relatively like PG rated still. It's not terrible. Yes, sir.
But if he got arrested, he would probably get like 1 million assaults on that officer for biting him.
Yes.
And then he chewed him.
Moon is a kid, but he could still get in some serious trouble for assaulting the officer.